Sweet, tangy, savory, what's not to love? Today I'm putting those classic sweet and sour flavors to work in Asian-inspired meatballs served over rice. This flavor combination dates back centuries in Chinese cooking, where sweet and tangy flavors are brought together in harmony. My version is gluten-free with a few tips for keeping it lower in carbs. Hi, I'm Elizabeth. On this channel, we'll start by cooking a meal. At the end, we'll sit down together and count the carbs. I'd love for you to join me. Let's get started. Let's begin by making the meatballs. I start with adding the liquid type ingredients into a large mixing bowl. Into this bowl, crack an egg, add milk, Parmesan cheese, Jarlic, fresh cracked pepper, Italian seasoning, and of course my emotional support seasonings of garlic powder and onion powder. Measure with your heart as well as your taste buds. Give it a good stir. Finely dice a chunk of onion. I like to put in some finely diced fresh spinach. Stack, roll, then cut some more. The spinach adds healthy vegetables as well as an easy way to keep your meatballs from drying out. Dump the onions and spinach into the egg and cheese mixture. Give it another good stir. Roll up a sleeve and get ready to add your ground beef. You could wear gloves at this point. I don't. Give your hands a good wash with soap and water and get ready to mix everything together. The trick is to only mix with one hand, but keep the other one clean, in case the phone rings or company comes to the door. After everything is combined, you need to add a binder. I'm keeping these meatballs gluten-free, so oatmeal it is. I'm also counting carbs, so I need to keep track of how many oats I'm adding. I'm using 1/4 cup increments. In the end, I added a total of 1/2 cup of oats to the meat. This is factored into the carb count at the end. To keep my meatballs uniform size, I use a cookie scoop. Everything is a standard size, so it cooks evenly. Place your scooped out meatballs onto a baking sheet. Pop them into a 350-degree preheated oven. I bake for 15 minutes. Make a pot of rice, any kind, whatever works for you. Follow the package directions. To make this dish even lower carb, use riced cauliflower. Let's make the teriyaki sauce. Soy sauce is the savory foundation of teriyaki, but since I'm keeping this recipe gluten-free, I'm swapping it out for tamari. The two are very similar in flavor and both are made from fermented soybeans. The difference is that traditional soy sauce contains wheat, while tamari is made without it, making it a great gluten-free alternative. The trick to making the sauce and keeping the carb count at a reasonable level: only use one sweetening ingredient and cut that one by half. I'm only using 2 tablespoons of brown sugar, and that amount will get divided by the total amount served into the final carb count. Add a hefty dose of garlic and ginger paste and a skosh of sesame oil. Bring this mixture to a boil. When it boils, add a slurry of water and corn powder into the mix. Bring this all to a boil and let it thicken slightly. If it gets too thick, just add a little more water. When finished, pull your meatballs out of the oven. Prepare green beans. Use any kind, fresh, frozen, canned. I'm using fresh. Snip the ends, cut in half, and steam in the microwave. Easy peasy. chop up pineapple into bite-sized pieces. To cut carbs, chop up into very small pieces. A nice finishing touch to this dish is toasted sesame seeds. Put some seeds into a heated sauté pan. Stir continually and remove from heat when they reach the desired level of doneness for you. Watch closely. Once these tiny seeds start to brown, they burn very quickly. This process only takes about 30 seconds or less. To plate, put a scoop of rice onto a plate, add your meatballs, green beans, and pineapple, drizzle with teriyaki sauce, and sprinkle with sesame seeds. This was another dinner winner for my family. Before I begin the actual carb count, let me say that I am not a medical professional. I am just a human being who happens to wear my pancreas in my pocket. I also happen to have years of living with type 1 diabetes. I was diagnosed in 1964. If you do have a medical question, please consult your diabetic care team. Let's take a look at the carb count for this dish. There will be some math involved, but don't worry, it's not that hard. So this plate has an Asian theme to it, and because of that, there needs to be a few things that you might need to do a little bit differently. So Asian food carries a heavy carb load as compared to a lot of the other stuff, and that's because the sauces are oftentimes made with fast-acting sugars, and the rice is a very slow-acting sugar, so you're going to have peaks at different times because of those two food groups. So what I do with the sauce, I like to make my own because then I know exactly what goes into it. But for instance, like the teriyaki sauce, it had both maple syrup or honey, and it also had brown sugar. I did away with the honey and I cut the brown sugar in half. You don't miss it. So that's one way to save some of those high carbohydrates that you're going to have to factor in. The rice, be very careful with the rice because it's very easy to eat a cup of rice, and a serving is based on a 1/3 cup portion. So it's easy to eat that 1 cup to 2 cup serving of rice, and that could easily add 45 to 90 grams of carbs that you need to account for the insulin for that. So on my own personal serving, I took just the 1/3 serving or 1/3 cup of rice, and I filled up with the meat and the vegetables. So you add all these columns up and you're going to end up with 51 grams of carbs per serving. Once you have your final carb count for your serving, you will need to divide this number by your carb ratio. For instance, if I use my carb ratio of 1 to 15, 51 divided by 15 is equal to 3.4 units of insulin needed to keep my blood sugar within a normal range. Now, if you want to talk about diabetic math, I'm actually going to give myself 4 units of insulin, and then I'm going to keep a watch on my Dexcom. In about 2 hours from now, I'm probably going to need to bolus for another 2 units or so. Happy carb counting, and remember, my fellow type 1s, counting carbs so our pancreas doesn't have to, one meal at a time.